Hello everyone, welcome back to the Java tutorial series. In this video, we will learn about what constructors are, why they are needed, different types of constructors, and how they work with different practical examples. So let's get started. So what is constructor? A constructor is a special member of a class that executes automatically. So whenever we create an object using the new keyword, this constructor will get called. So its primary purpose is to initialize instance variables, that is properties, and perform any setup required for the object. Okay, so a constructor is a special method which is automatically called. Focus on this word, automatically. We don't need to call this method explicitly. This is a method, a special type of method which is called automatically. When it is called, when object is created. So a constructor is a special method which is automatically called when object is created in the heap memory. Okay. What is the purpose of this method? What is the purpose of this special method? The constructor. What is the purpose? So purpose of this method is to initialize an object's data. So whenever we are using new keyword, object is created in heap memory. Okay, but that object should have properties and behavior, right? So this properties and behaviors, this is data. Okay, what it is written, the main purpose of the constructor is to initialize, focus on this word, initialize an object's data, properties and behavior. Okay, so we will initialize property with the help of the special method which is constructor. So whenever we create an object, the constructor automatically gets called and it initialize the value, initialize the properties, initialize the object data. Okay. So now, what are the characteristics of a constructor? There are few important rules to remember. Okay, a constructor may have the same name as the class name. So constructor name, okay, constructor name, we know, right? Constructor is the special method. It is a kind of method only, but it is getting called automatically. That is the difference. Normal method we need to call explicitly, so it get calls automatically. So constructor name must be same as the class name. So whatever is the class name, the same name we need to define the constructor name. This is the first one. The second one, it does not have any return type, not even void. So I hope you remember the syntax of the method. Syntax of the method is return type. Okay, return type and the method name, and then parameters. So this is the syntax of normal method. But what it is saying, for constructor, we don't need to have return type, not even void, no return type. So this value itself we don't need to add. Directly from the method name it will start, method name, and that also it will be same as the class name. So whatever is the class name, the same name we need to provide as the method name, and no return type. Okay, not even void. It is called automatically during object creation. Okay, we have seen whenever we create an object using new keyword, at that time this method will be get called automatically. A constructor can be overloaded. Okay, we know the concept of overloading. Overloading means same method name, but parameters can be different. Data type of the parameters can be different, or the sequence of the parameters can be different, but the method name will be same. That is overloading. So same concept we can apply for constructor. Okay, so xyz is the constructor, then we can define one more xyz method with one parameter, again xyz with two parameters, xyz with three parameters. Like that we can overload the constructor. Okay, every class has a constructor. Okay, this is an important line. Every class has a constructor. Even if we are not defining constructor explicitly within the class. Okay, so we all know that methods, whatever is the method resides inside the class, and constructor is also a special type of method, so it should be also present within the class, but we need to follow some of the rules for writing constructor. So every class has a constructor, but what if we don't write constructor method explicitly in the method? We are not writing anything in the constructor. Then Java provides by default constructor. If we are not writing constructor, Java will assume it is calling by default constructor with no parameters. Okay, in the example we'll see how it works. So okay, let's go to IntelliJ and see, have some example for better clarity. Okay, so we are learning constructors. Okay, for that let's create one class. Okay, for example student. Okay, so we created one class, but this class don't have any properties and behavior. So we all know class has properties and behaviors. Behaviors means methods. Okay, behaviors means methods. So we will define some properties for a student class, that is string name, int age. Okay, so these are the two properties of student class, and let me define some method void display. Okay, void display, and it will display the, let's say, name plus and plus age. Okay, so this is behavior. So student class has properties and behaviors. Okay, let's define one main method, void main. Main method I am defining just because to run an application and see any output if you want to check, verify. Okay, so inside class we have methods. So one is the behavior, that method related to student class. Okay, and another is the main method I have written to execute and see the output and all. Okay, and these are the properties, name and age are the properties of student class. Okay, so for good. Now in this class we have not defined any constructor, correct? So let's create an object, student s1 equals to new student. So in this line, object is created in the heap memory, and s1 is the reference variable which is holding the memory location of the object. So s1 will refer to the object in the heap memory, and s1 is sitting in the stack. I hope it is clear. Then we are updating the value to Rahul. Then we are updating another property age to 22. Now we are calling s1 dot display. See, this method is getting called. Okay, we are calling this method behavior. Now we will run the program and see the output. See, in the output we can see Rahul and 20, name and age are printed. What is the name and age? Rahul and 22. From where we got these values? From these two lines. Why we are updating in separate lines these two things? Can't we provide values while creating object only? In the current situation, what we are doing after object creation, this is object creation, right? We are using new keyword. So after object creation, we are assigning values. But I want during object creation only the values should be assigned. Okay. So in that case, we need to define constructor. So we need to define constructor. So we will define here constructor. The first rule of constructor is we should not have return type. So we should not have return type. That means we will directly start from the method name. And another rule of constructor is method name should be same as the class name. So student, that is the class name, right? And parenthesis and then here. So this is what constructor. So here it is showing one usage. Where it is getting used? Line number 20. See, we have created constructor, but we are not doing anything inside so far. This is like default constructor. Even if we don't provide, Java will write this thing on behalf of us. Okay, it will execute on behalf of us, but this is like default constructor. Okay, we are not passing any parameter. Now even if we don't provide this one, Java will create it automatically and it will execute like this. Now another rule of constructor is we can overload constructor. Correct? Overloading we know already. So same method name but different in parameters, number of parameters. So I will give parameter. What are the properties of this class? String name, int age. Okay. So I will give parameter string name comma int age. Okay. Now what I will do? I will write this dot name equals to name. This dot age equals to age. What it is doing? Why I mentioned this? So what it is doing? See, currently no usages, means no object creating line is getting called this method. This is constructor. This is also constructor, but both are overloading. Why overloading? Because here one parameter, 0 parameter, and here 2 parameters. So after getting 2 parameters, 2 values, that is name and age, I am assigning this value name and age to the current object properties name and age. Okay. Think of it like, okay, I will take one example, it will be better. So I am adding here one more line. Okay, I am creating another object, student s2 equals to new student. But this time I will pass what Vicky and comma 20 semicolon. So here you can see, right, one usage. Why? Because while object creation, this is also object creation, we are using new keyword. I am explaining you why I have written this, okay, and also the execution flow. So line number 27, the object will get created in the heap memory, and the s2 reference variable will be sitting in the stack, and the memory location of this object will be stored in the s2 variable. So s2 will refer to this object which is in heap memory. Okay, object is created and it is sitting in heap memory, but what about the values? See, object is created, objects have properties and behavior. So this object must be having property and behavior. So property is what? Name and age. Correct? Name and age. And behavior is what? Display. So this object has property name and age, and behavior. What was the method name? Display. Okay. But no values assigned to the name and age. So, but we have provided here name and age. So these values should be assigned to the property of this object, whatever we passed as an argument. So these values should be assigned to the property of this object. How it will be? With the help of constructor. We have seen, right? The purpose of the constructor is to initialize the properties of an object. So this is constructor. So when we execute this line, object will get created and this method will be getting called automatically, and the name and age will be passed. Name will be Vicky, age will be 20. So what it will do, this constructor will do, this will initialize. This means current object. This means this object. So in the line number 18 and 19, it is saying update, assign the name to the current object property name, that is name. So this object has property name and age. So this constructor is assigning these values name and age to the property of this object. So now after execution of this constructor, this object will have the property name and age with value name equals to Vicky and age equals to 20. So previously I asked you why we are doing after object creation. I want this value should be assigned during object creation. So that's what it is happening. During object creation, values are getting assigned of properties of this object with the help of constructor. So what is the main usage of constructor? Purpose of constructor is to initialize the data object, initialize the object data. Okay, so this is what current object. So this method is getting called here. So this, for this object new student, it is updating name and age properties with values whatever we provided in the arguments. Now if we write s2.display, see, we have not written here as s2.name and age. Why? Because we have initialized during object creation. So s2.display should call this method and should print the name and age property of the current object, that is s2. Okay, so let's verify it. So first one is Rahul 21, that was S1 display. S2 display is for Vicky 20. See, we have provided Vicky and 20 for S2. So it is displaying the name and age. So that is the use of constructor. Purpose of constructor is to initialize the object data. Data means properties. What properties we have? Name and age in this example. Without constructor, how we were initializing the object? After object creation, we were explicitly assigning values to the properties. And also we have done here constructor overloading, method overloading. This is a good interview question. Can constructor be overloaded? So constructor is also a method, special method. Why we are calling it special? Because the name of the method is same as the class method, class name, and no return type is added in the constructor, and it can be overloaded. Okay. So without constructor, we need to assign values separately after creating the object. And with constructor, we can initialize the object at the time of creation itself. Okay, what we are doing here, initializing object at the time of creation. Okay, this makes the code cleaner, shorter and easier. We are not writing these two extra lines for S2 object. Okay, and here we have defined this constructor. This is default constructor. Okay, why default constructor? Because no parameter. A default constructor is a constructor automatically provided by Java. Even if we skip this one, even if we delete this constructor, Java will automatically provide this one. Okay. So this constructor has no parameter and performs default initialization. It allows us to create objects even when no constructor is explicitly defined. So in the case of S1, okay, in the case of S1, we have not defined these things, but still, even then, the object got created and we have assigned values. How? Because Java was providing automatically this thing, constructor. Okay. This is, we can call no argument constructor also. Okay. So this is like default constructor. Default values will be assigned. Values will be assigned to the properties of an object. Okay. This is default constructor. And we are giving parameters here, right? So we can say this is just a different name, nothing else. Okay, parameterized constructor. First understand the constructor, then types. Okay, so we are providing parameters. That's why the name is parameterized constructor, nothing else. Okay, and if we are doing one more overloading student, inside this, suppose we are printing something. What we are printing? Constructor called. Constructor called. Okay. I will comment this one. So in this line it will print constructor called. Okay, let's verify. So first it will print constructor called, then Rahul 20, then Vicky 30. Yeah, see. exact output. So in the line number 32, this method is getting called. Okay, this constructor is getting called. We also call it as no argument constructor, since we are not passing any argument in this method while object creation. So we call it as no argument constructor. Okay, also what we call no argument constructor. So whatever we are doing, based on that we are giving name. No argument, that's why no argument constructor. We are giving parameterized constructor. This is default. We are not providing, Java is providing, that is default constructor. Simple. But the only difference is between default and no argument is no argument constructor is written explicitly by the programmer, okay, and does not accept any parameter. It is different from the compiler provided default constructor because we define its behavior ourselves. So what it will do, it will print, we have defined, right? So whenever an object is created, the constructor executes automatically. And we have seen parameterized constructor accepts value as parameter. Here we have provided values, arguments. These values are used to initialize the object instance. So this will initialize objects instance. Okay, I will tell you, this is the most commonly used type of constructor. Why? Because we want to initialize during object creation, so it will be used many times. Okay, and also we have seen the concept of constructor overloading. Just like methods, that means a class can have multiple constructors with different parameter list. See, these are small things, but these are asked in an interview. Can constructor be overloaded? Can a class have a multiple constructor? So yes, class can have multiple constructor and constructor can be overloaded. So depending on the arguments passed while creating an object, those constructor will be called. Okay. Now what is the difference between the constructor and the normal method? What is the difference? Because constructor is also a type of method, right? So the difference comes from here. Constructor is same name as class name. Whereas method can have any valid name. Okay. In constructor, no return type, and method must have return type. These are the differences. It can also include void also, but here no void, no return type. Constructor is getting called automatically when it is getting called automatically while object creation. Okay, while object creation, when this method is calling explicitly, we need to call by ourselves this method based on our requirement, based on our need, based on our use. Okay, what is the purpose of this constructor? To initialize objects. So object creation, okay, object is created. Now what is the properties? Value, suppose cell name and age, these are the properties. Okay, but what is the value? So to initialize these values, initialize objects, constructor helps initialize object. The main functioning of constructor is to initialize object when during object creation. And what is the purpose of this method? To perform specific operations, whatever we mentioned inside the method definition. So those specific tasks will be performed. Okay. Constructor executes once during object creation. Okay, this will execute only once, and when? During object creation. And this method can be called multiple times Okay, based on our need, requirement, logic, we can call a number of times. Okay, so these are the differences between the common method and the constructor. Okay, so we do some common mistakes. Okay, what common mistakes we do? What mistake we'll do? We'll add return type in constructor. So that should be avoided. Okay, here it is mentioned no return type. So these mistakes we do in whenever we write code. So these things needs to be taken care. Yeah. So let's quickly summarize what we have learned so far. So a constructor is used to initialize objects. Okay, initialize objects. Now we understand the meaning of initialize objects. After object creation, we'll assign values to the properties. Okay, it is called automatically. We have seen how it is called automatically, and when it is called object creation, and it is the same name as the class name, and do not have a return type. What are the types of constructor? We have seen default constructor provided by compiler. If you don't write means it will automatically generate and write. Okay, and it will work normally. No argument constructor with zero parameters, zero argument constructor. If you are passing parameter, it is parameterized constructor. Okay, and how constructor can be overloaded we have seen with the examples. So that's all for this video. I hope this tutorial helped you understand the constructors in Java. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.